Welcome everybody to episode 35 of the Content Lab podcast. Here we're joined by five content creators that all of them were a part of one of the semifinals. Specifically, the week 3, all of them went to Europe to be a part of the third semifinal. But we have two of them that were also part of Torian. We have Josie. Josie, you went to Torian, right?
Yes.
And Bennett, he was in 3 of them. He went to week 1, the East, week 2 in Brazil, and week 3. So let's go quickly through some introductions. Let's see how I'll do it. There you go. Let's start with, there you go, Bennett.
Hey, my name is BennettLooper. I was shooting for Mayhem, CrossFit Mayhem, and Mayhem Athlete. I started off covering the East semifinal in Orlando, then went to Rio in Brazil, covered Copa Sur, our athletes down there, and then wrapped everything up in Berlin, covering 2 of our athletes in the third and final week. So.
Hey guys, my name is Marius, and I was shooting from the stands in Berlin this year, but I was shooting mainly out behind the scenes stuff outside the floor for the French branch of Puma Training. I was filming a documentary on Claudia Gluck and Victor Hofer, but mostly behind the scenes stuff because I couldn't film on the floor. And I was shooting some shots for a personal documentary that I'm making on Guillaume Briand. So yeah.
Awesome. Next one.
My name's Kevin. On the semis, I worked for Hamilton Road Productions. And besides that, I was filming for the documentary series I'm making from Andre Houdet. With the team No Shortcuts.
Hello, I'm Carolien I work together with Josie and with Floor. And I especially work for Fit8 Europe on the floor and a bit of storytelling as well.
Awesome.
That.
I'm Josie. I was at Torian Pro last week and Berlin this week, so I mainly worked with Go Out Mobility first, Fit8 Europe for the Europe event. Worked as well with Craig Ritchie for the Team Ritchie channel, helping out with that content, and also covering some specific athletes, including Gabby for the All Gas No Break series, which will continue after the games this year.
Were you able to sleep, Josie?
Yeah, I think I went 3 or 4 hours the first night, 3 hours the second night, and then I went to the after party, so I had 3 hours.
Yeah.
The same.
That took me home.
And Bennett did that for 3 weeks.
That last
I don't
week
know how
was
you do
so
it,
bad.
Bennett. I really don't know how you do it. 3 weeks in a row, man, I was dead. I was like, if I had to do another week of this, oof.
Dude, there was a point, literally after Orlando, I woke up one morning and I was looking in the mirror. I have this thing when I lose sleep, my eyes start watering, for some reason. Yeah. And so we had stayed up until 5:30 to get a YouTube video out, and I had to get up at 7, and I'm eyes barely open, looking in the mirror, and I was like, man, I love my job, but I was like, I don't know, I could do this for another 2 weeks, but I'm just kind of kick it in gear.
Awesome. Something I wanted to talk about that it just kind of obviously Josie and Bennett can talk about this more. They know more about it because specifically Bennett, he was in the East week 1. Is it the difference from semifinals in America and semifinals in other parts of the world? This is not to trash anything that happened in America, but I see the production behind the venue at Torian and at the European semifinal week 3. And it's completely different, the crowd, everything. It just looks like a bigger production. They put more effort into hosting these competitions compared to the week 1 and 2. Why do you think is that? I think also it's a privately owned competition, right? Torian, and I don't know, week 3 was the what's it called? It has a name, right? The competition.
No, so the guy who organized the Berlin event, he used to run German Throwdown for a couple of years. And from a logistics standpoint, German Throwdown has always been a very, very well-run event. So I just think he just upscaled, that event based on his skill set and stuff he got from the past. So yeah, it was run by CrossFit, but he was designed to kind of run the whole event.
Gotcha. And how does Torian work? Is it CrossFit also hosting it, and Torian just like
No, so
I guess
Torian is
Torian
ran by
hosting it and CrossFit put in the production?
no, so it's these two guys, John and Mike. They actually owned CrossFit Torian, and they started like pretty much inside a gym, and then they kind of grew it out. So I was fortunate in 2018 to go with 2019 to go to the last time it was not a CrossFit sanctioned event. That's when they did an open announcement there. Like not open, like they did the open workout. So Tia was there on the floor, and yeah, these guys like they put on a world class event. It's unbelievable what they put together from the spectator standpoint. I think the stadium really helps because it's very compact. And everything like from athlete experience. I talked to some athletes. They said that from their end it was very good. The vendor village is awesome. There's loads of places to get food, which really helps. And yeah,
Why you
awesome.
guys think the hype is so much bigger in like outside the States? Like Bennett, you went to Brazil too, and you and Scott were telling me about like how hype everything is, like the crowd, the people around, like, you know,
Yeah,
what's like
I
the
think
reason why?
I think it's multifactorial. There's a lot of factors at play. I think first and foremost, like I think it's a cultural thing. I mean, like especially in South America, like they're passionate about literally everything. And so like here at these events, they're like the heroes of the sport for them are like coming home and like especially like Guy, like he's like Brazil's hero. So like when he comes back and like competes like back in his home country, like people go absolutely nuts. So there's that element. Um, I think also it's like these competitions that are like independently run, like Torian and Copa Sur. It's very much like they're very open to like trying new things and like, you know, I don't know, having as many people as possible like help them. So like with us, like they were like very much open to us. Like we're very storytelling oriented, so they would have us like go behind the scenes and get content that way. And so they're very good at like using multiple streams of promotion, and I think that helps promote the event to the entire continent. But I think the biggest thing is at least from a surface level is just cultural. Like there's just so much more hype for some reason. I'm not sure why, but that was my first realization.
Yeah. Kevin, you went to semifinals last year, right?
I was at Lowlands as well, yeah, last year.
Okay. Do you notice any difference from Berlin this year to last year? Obviously, we know some of the changes that has happened in the media side of it, and I mean, again, Josie can talk about this a little more since he has a lot more experience going around all the different competitions and from years before last year too. So what difference, like anything that you noticed?
I think like the main difference I can refer to is the fact there were like less media people in the media pit this time. So on Lowlands, we just like had a whole bunch of photographers and videographers running around to capture things. And this time it was obviously very hard to get a media pass for Berlin. I haven't been to the other semifinals, but it was pretty hard to get in. So like the experience at Berlin for me was like way much better because there was like more space around the venue, way better to get along. Like everyone had a chance to get their shot. And on Lowlands, it was like, I don't want to call it more fighting, but like the finish line was like so crowded last year in Lowlands. Like even the director of Lowlands, Robin, was like pretty like, hey, if you step another time in front of the camera or the railway, like you'll be out. And this time it was like pretty relaxed, ongoing, and like I think Chris as well was very happy with how we as media people run it.
Yeah.
I think it's nice that sorry.
Oh, go ahead, Marius.
Go ahead.
I think it's nice that the live stream camera and the rail wasn't on the finish line this year, which gave you guys much more space to just walk around there.
Yeah, how was the experience for you shooting from the stands? Like, do you try to get with a brand first to be on the floor and then kind of?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of tricky. Like, I think most of the things unfold a bit last minute, even for most people who have been like something secure for a long time. Like the actual credentials, sometimes like we learned about that we're gonna have one or not have one like on the week or something like this. I had something that was supposed to happen that didn't happen last minute. So that was a bit of a bummer. First day, obviously, seeing all my colleagues, friends in the media pit was a little bit of a hard pill to swallow. But then I quickly tried to just see glass half full. Like I said, all weekend, I was giving lemons and tried to make lemonade, and not complain. So it is what it is. But to be honest, sometimes some shots were really nice to get from the stands as well. I think a lot of some of us guys that were at Whatappalooza can also attest to that. So I think I was pretty happy with the shots that I got from the stands, and really appreciative that all of the colleagues came up to me and asked me always how I was doing, if I was getting good shots. Got some great tips from Kevin with some stuff. So yeah, it was honestly fine, and I got to see everyone. So it was nice.
Awesome. Carolien, how was your experience? You said you went to semifinals last year, right? You were a part of it. And if I remember, did you go to the games too last year?
No, I didn't.
You haven't? Okay.
No. Yeah, I was in Lowlands, but that was a bit of last minute because Linda, she worked for Fit8 back then. She asked if I could film, but there was also like Lowlands was a throwdown, and then it became a semifinals, and we were placed with a team just for fun to compete in the throwdown version. So I did both. That wasn't great for my body. So Berlin was a way different experience because it was full focus on work, which is way better. I met Josie, I think, last year because he was also shooting for Fit8, so kind of worked a bit together, but not much. And this year we had to work together in a team, which was really fun. And yeah, what the guys are saying, there was a lot more space than Lowlands. So I think we don't have to do elbows to get a great shot. And if it's busy, you're just going to stand somewhere else, and then the shot's also good. So it was a good experience for me. I also learned a lot from Kevin as well. He's like our walking camera nerd who you can ask anything. I love that. Yeah, I really love the vibe of, because normally I shoot for like other sports. I work for the Olympic team of the Netherlands, so I'm used to going like all different sports and all different sports worlds. But CrossFit is, I like the fact that the media guys and the media people from CrossFit are all helping each other out, and I love that atmosphere. So love this weekend.
This can be very interesting because you say you've worked with other sports, right? And like in a big stage at the Olympics. How does it work when it comes to like media credential passes if you're gonna shoot, anything at the Olympics or any other sports, bigger sports like CrossFit?
Yeah, that's pretty hard. But I work for Team NL, so like full time. So I work for the Olympic Committee of the Netherlands, and we're like doing something different than other people. So I'm working in the team. So I'm at the Olympic Village. I go to trainings. I can go to the competitions, but then I can't shoot because the rights are really, really, like in CrossFit, you can just shoot without paying for rights, but in the Olympic, it's not done. So you can't film anything there. It's a bit old fashioned, but the brands and the television are paying a lot of money to get their rights. So for me, it's like a way different. Now I was on a competition floor and can shoot stories, but a lot of images from the competition. And at the Olympics, it's just training sessions and the behind the scenes of in the Olympic Village. So that's a bit different.
Yeah, that's kind of like the line that I don't understand. Like I get that brands are paying a lot of money to have the rights to. I mean, I'm talking specifically in CrossFit, and I get it. I think GoWatt and Noble and the brands are paying big money. They should have media rights to have their guys capture stuff. But with these changes, they're obviously they're not allowing, brands are not the main sponsors, but they're allowing other media outlets inside the floor. And I get all the press stuff like Morning Chalk Up and stuff like that because they're just press companies, but they're also allowing like independent companies, kind of like if you have a podcast. I saw 2 or 3 guys I met on the floor like while I was shooting on semifinals week 2, and I'm like, I saw him like never with a camera or anything, just with a phone, and I was like,
yeah,
oh, so like what are you doing? Like, you're shooting? And he's like, oh well, I'm the host of a podcast and I'm just here like watching. I'm like, okay, like I get it, like cool, but what's the line? Like, why can't somebody that's, I don't know, like somebody from a training camp have their team there, and somebody that's hosting a podcast can have a couple of their guys there without a camera or anything, just kind of like just there. So that's one of the things that I was like confused. Of course, there is definitely an explanation to this. I just personally don't know. I don't know if you guys experienced something similar, just kind of like people with their phone on the floor, and it just kind of didn't make too much sense to me.
I mean,
I think
you do have like Peter from Coffee Was and Pods, this incredible good podcast. Like he was there just capturing some behind the scenes. And I think it's also good to have like different news outlets just cover the event. I just think that the system is very unclear yet, and like I think it's going to be processed until they figure it out. But then again, I think like space is a big issue. Like we were very fortunate, like in Berlin, we had the pit was huge. It was bigger than at the games. It was just like massive, between like the rail, like the floor and like the wall, there was like 3-4 meters. So there was really a lot of space to move around and stuff like that. But then I can understand that like some smaller venues with a smaller pit, etc., it can get a little harder. So I just think it's like a work in progress for them. They're trying to figure it out, and hopefully soon we're going to be able to figure it out, because then it also makes like everyone's life easier, whether it's on CrossFit side or as us creator side as well. Just like plan out our trips better. And like Mary said, you can get your credential given last minute. And I mean, the hotel price in Berlin were crazy already come like 3 weeks before the event. So I can only imagine like 2-3 days before the event how it is.
Yeah, no, and I agree. I think, I mean, the you have like the more fame or podcasts that people know about, like Coffee, Butts and Watts, like Talking Lit, fitness stuff like that. But like the thing that I was talking mostly, it's like one of the guys I was talking about, he wasn't even really involved in CrossFit. He was just there, and he had somebody with him. They were just walking. So in my mind, I'm like, I mean, it just, why are they allowed on the pit and not other brands? But at the same time, I get it. Like, other brands are paying money to be there, and if their competition is also on the floor, it's like, hey, why are we paying all this money? But I mean, I actually had a good experience in week 2. Chris, most of you guys know him, and Leah, they were like very helpful, like making us understand, like, hey, this is what's happening. It's new. We're still like trying to figure it out. In fact, from week 1 to week 2, things change a lot. Bennett, you were not in week 2 in the West semifinal, but week 1, you guys had like just one side open. You couldn't go, apparently Chris kind of like received some feedback, like, hey, it kind of like doesn't work out the best way like that. And they open up like the full C. So the end, the finish line, starting line, and the right side. So that's good. Again, it's a new system, so they're trying to figure it out.
Yeah, like on that point, I mean, I have to give it to Chris. I talked to him after the event, and like it's a lot to like manage these competitions. And like you said, I coming from the East and then coming to Berlin, run by the same like management. Like I could tell he had taken notes from the feedback he got from the East semifinal, and he even told us, he was like, "Hey, we've made some changes," and they were good changes. And I think overall it made the experience a lot better. It spread people out too, just from a logistical standpoint. Like we're all not crammed in one side. So like, I mean, there were points where I was like literally sprinting from one end to the other. Not ideal, obviously, but like I felt like able to do that because there was enough space and there weren't as many people like, crowding for the shot. So I could tell that progress was being made and that efforts were being made to make us feel more able to do our job.
Yeah. The other thing is that I feel like some creators can get hurt by this, because not of like the work they do, but like brands saying like, or thinking like, hey, if you're not going to be on the floor, like why should I pay you? Like why would we use you? I was talking to Marius after Berlin. I'm like, hey, dude, your content look good. And he's like, yeah, well, I wasn't allowed on the floor. I'm like, well, it still look good. And then he said something, I mean, he didn't say it being cocky, but he said something like, people know how to use their cameras are still going to be able to, create good content, whatever it is. And I mean, I remember seeing some guys at the games a couple of years ago when they were not allowed on the pit at the Coliseum, and they were still getting like really good content. But it's kind of like also convincing the brands like, hey, like we can create good content from the stands. And also we have a guy here Stephen B. He says that it was very, very messy and people didn't know if they could. Wait, somebody. Can you guys hear that echo or just me? Okay.
Nope.
Anyways, they didn't know if they could post their photos, and that's something that also I think changed a little bit. Brands are not allowed to post or to use the photos directly on their accounts. So that's something that also kind of like people are trying to like they're trying to figure out, and brands also they're trying to see like, hey, what's gonna work here, what's
Are you
not.
saying they can't post their photos like during the competition, or they like have to wait a certain period of time?
I think they just cannot use them at all. If an athlete uses them, I think they can. I don't know how it works. If the athlete uses it, they can like repost them or something like that, but they cannot advertise directly from those photos. Or
Interesting.
I mean, Chelsea probably knows a little more about this.
So see, this is like, and this is like a huge problem that I had, and I really went back and forth with Chris about it. Was just like we talked about, you have like brands like FitAid, like GoWad, like No, whatever, who are paying to get the media rights, right, and they go into the pit, and then it's like, well, if you have access to a certain like vantage point to get content in a certain way, when you're paying a sponsorship package, if I'm not mistaken, you're also like in a certain way you're paying to get that access, right? Which other brands won't get, because otherwise, like, where's the real the other value that you get as a brand, right? So I think the main thing to understand is like, who can be at an event, like what brand can what can a brand do and post from an event? Is a brand allowed to post something from the stands? If they have a videographer in the stands, can they use that content or no? And I think it's once this will be really clarified out, and as to like who can get content from the venue, from an event run by CrossFit, from inside the arena, whether it's the media pit or the stands. I think once that happens, we'll have a much clearer idea of like also what us creators can do and cannot do, and what contracts we can accept with brands and what we can't accept, just so everyone plays fair game and there's no like gray area anymore in which people tend to play in a lot of the times.
Yeah, I'm intrigued what's gonna happen at the games too, because obviously that's a much bigger stage, and I don't really know what's gonna happen.
Personally, shooting from the stands and knowing that I didn't get a media pass, I was always making sure to tag absolutely zero brands, zero training camps or anything. I was just putting CrossFit Games. And to some of the athletes that I made reels for, I told them, like, you can tag me if you want, CrossFit Games, no brands. I didn't try to, fly too close to the sun or anything like this. And I think they were fine with it. I didn't get any messages. I didn't get any email. I just shot with my 6 inches lens, and I didn't have any issues.
Have you guys heard anything about the games this year?
I have not.
I've heard like a real small thing, because I worked for Hamilton Road Productions, the semifinals.
Yep.
We spoke like with the CEO as well, like very short time. And what I've heard, like, I'm not sure if it's true already. Like, he said something like the access is even more restricted at games than it was at semis. So I can imagine like getting your content out as a content creator from stands or something. I think they're gonna be like restrictions to that, even more than it is now.
Hamilton Roads, they have the rights, or not the rights, but I guess they have they're like the main source of production.
Main source of broadcasting and producing the games documentaries as well.
Mm-hmm.
So I think they're gonna play like a big role in what we're probably will be allowed to post or not to post. But yeah, it's like just something I heard between in the lines, but like we have to wait till it's there. But I think there will be more restrictions.
Yeah,
I would assume that would be the case too, unfortunately. I mean, just the way things went at the beginning of semifinals, when it was very hard to get a media pass, like I could kind of tell. I was like, if this is what they're doing for semis, like I am not hopeful for the games. But I mean, fingers crossed. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. All right, let's talk more about like us as content creators? Like, what's I mean, whoever wants to jump in first, like, go ahead and do it. But that's something new that you learn, and something that you wish you would have like known before going into semifinals, and that you know by the end of the week you're like, oh, okay, you know, that really helped me. Whoever wants to start first, go ahead. Or just something new you learn at semifinals. I'm just gonna pick somebody if they. I'm just gonna pick some. Oh, there you go.
All right, here we go. For me, it wasn't necessarily something new, but it was more like the evolution of something. Because I tried it last year, and it's working with a team of people. Obviously, having Carolien around me, having Flo, who on the photo side was just a monster. Like, man, the stuff he put out was just so good. And then obviously we had Rowie. We called her the glue to the team. Was kind of like making sure that each brand we work with, like, if they had the content they needed, we knew exactly what athlete to cover, what we had to do with that athlete, and so on. And I think working in a team is something very different. I think the leadership aspect of it comes into play a lot, and also the management aspect where you need to, make sure that whatever goes out looks good. And so for me, it was technically my third time doing it now, and every time I learn more, about what I can do better, into leading the team, what we can do better as a whole to centralize content, make sure we have better stuff going out, and all that kind of stuff. But as a whole, like, I was blessed. The team I worked with was incredible. Like, they were the MVPs of the weekend for me.
Carolien, how about you? Somebody that's been, in other sports, like, what's something that whenever you shoot CrossFit or anything around like this industry that you can like take away from the weekend?
Well, I think a lot of what Josie said. I don't think if I had to work on my own, I don't know if I wanted to go, because I work a lot on my own during competitions, and sometimes that's okay. But I know this is like a really stressful weekend because you only have, well, I had 3 days, Josie had 4 days. You only had 3 days to cover lots of content and lots of stories. And I think I couldn't do that on my own, not without Rowie, the person who just, my battery was dying like in the last heat of the men, and I had to interview Jelle. And normally I would run myself to go get it, but the media room was like 5 minutes away, so that wasn't possible. So now we had someone who could run for me. So I think working in a team, I don't know how it is.
And it's like, oh, I need something like that.
What do you say?
I was like, I can see Bennett's face. He's like, oh, I need somebody like that. I can like.
Yeah, I told him. Well, normally you got someone.
I was about
right?
to say, props to Bennett and also Kevin for like just being one-man shows and just running around everywhere.
Yeah, because Bennett, you were the only one shooting for Mayhem, right, in Berlin?
Yeah.
You didn't have anybody else. Do you do both photos and video, or mostly?
No, I just did video, and someone was asking me like, oh, are you disappointed? And I was like, dude, no. I was like, I'm very much like a perfectionist, so like I want to do one job well. So like I know I can't do a good job doing photos and video at the same time. So I'm like, I'd just rather do one and do a really good job doing one. But I only had 2 athletes to cover, Lazar and Uldis. So it was kind of stressful when they were in the same heat, but I mean, it was a little more chilled. I didn't have like 20 athletes. So
yeah.
And I think that the lovely part about this CrossFit and the media team is that we were standing next to each other, like Josie, Bennett, and me, and we were all filming one athlete, and at some point we all need to film another one, and it's like, okay, can I get this from you? Can I get this from you? And that's like a really good atmosphere that I'm not used to, and I really love that. Just help each other out. Also with Kevin, if you miss a shot, or if a camera guy who always standing in the way blocks your shot, someone else got it. So yeah, you got each other back, and I love that. There's no like competition between each other.
Yeah, that's something I noticed, especially on the final week. Like almost immediately, like Josie called it the back row. It was like it was literally all of us were in the back row except for Kevin, but he's part of the crew too. But like, I mean, it felt we were all shooting for different people, but it felt like we were on the same team, because at the end of the day, we are on the same team. We're all promoting athletes and this sport to the rest of the world. And so it very much felt while we were on different teams that we were working together. And it did have a very familial aspect. I mean, there were times where Kevin was in the stands and I was like, shoot, I didn't get a shot of Lazar's snatch. And Kevin was like, hey, I got you, bro. Like, and he sent me some footage of that. And it just felt very familial and like we were on the same team. So that was a huge plus for the final week. It was a great way to end semifinals.
Yeah. We have a question here from Steven. He says, for you, how many athletes is too many athletes to follow? Because there were 3 of us working for the athletes of Parkland and Trevi, is that how you say it? And sometimes it seems impossible to follow them all. I mean, me personally, for too many athletes to follow was probably the games last year. We had 17 athletes of Mayhem and individuals and like 7 teams. I think it was too much, but let's talk about semifinals. Like, what do you guys think? What's like too many athletes to follow? It also depends what you're doing. Like, I feel like if you're doing photos, you can like switch like faster between one or the other, and you also like, you know, it also helps if you have somebody shooting with you. You can like split, like, hey, I'm gonna focus on hit 1 and 4. You go 6 and 10, stuff like that. So I guess it depends on the situation that you're at. But yeah, it can definitely get like a lot, especially if you really have like a specific assignments, like, hey, just make sure you get the finish line and whatever happens, and then you're like, what's gonna happen? Yeah.
I think it also depends.
Oh yeah, go ahead, Marius.
No, go ahead, man.
Oh, I think it also depends like really on the schedule, like the heat times as well. Like I had to cover for No Shortcuts. We were there like with 12 or 13 athletes, including a team. But like they were pretty separated on heat. So we got like athletes on the first heat, on the third heat, and on fourth heat. And it's easier then to capture people than if you have to capture like 4 athletes in the final heat, because it's like it's more hectic. So I think it's like a combination of like what's too many. It really depends on the situation it is.
Yeah, I think you're right too.
The output, like what you need to put out.
Yeah,
it's like for us with Carolien with Fit Aid, like the main thing we had to do, at least because that was like the largest roster of athletes, we just need to make sure that each athlete had like at least 1 reel of them. So we kind of like looked at the schedule at the beginning of the week and we're like, okay, this is what we have to do, this is what we need to cover. How do we split it? And then we kind of doing like, okay, for example, Carolien, you focus on this athlete on this workout, I'll focus on the same workout but on this athlete. But then it depends on the output. Like for example, for GoWad, we had to do, I think it was like 1 kind of like a mini reel per workout, and then we had to get all the GoWad athletes to come a workout like Linda, for example, where we basically had to shoot it from the side because we didn't have access to the finish line. Then it got a little bit hectic, but also like it's just like on longer workouts, it's not a matter of too many athletes, but it's a matter of like knowing what you're going to shoot, and just making sure that you make each shot count. I think that's like the main thing. If you have to cover many athletes, it's like make sure each shot, every time you press on the record button, your shot is going to be good to go.
Yeah. Something that helps us too, saying us as like when I shot with Ben in the past, like Mayhem stuff, is that it depends also on like the story you want to tell. Specifically for video, like they have a very specific assignment, like, you know, like they're going to be making a documentary at the end of the season and they have athletes to follow. And it's not like you want to, you know, leave some athletes like outside of the documentary, but but at the same time, you have like the athletes that you have to focus about, like Rich and, you know, Bailey, Rail, and Paige, like whoever is a part of it. And it's kind of same thing with photos. Like I remember a couple of times that I had like 7 people in the heat, and Ben or Scott were like, hey, you know, focus on this athlete as like the main thing. And then if you can get some more shots, that's, you know, that's fine. So you also like kind of, you just gotta like understand like, hey, what's the goal of like, am I here shooting for what? So, and then from there, it kind of helps you to, you know, figure out like which direction to go first, and then like the rest kind of like extra credit if you are able to capture everything.
For me, Berlin was like, it was kind of like the sweet spot because most of like the stuff we do, I think if you're shooting for Instagram, which is like what a lot of people do, like they just are trying to crank out reels and like short form content, like you can handle more volume of athletes. But like a lot of the stuff that we do is like talking based. It's like storytelling based. So like we want to be with the athletes. We want to have conversations with them on camera. And I think Berlin was the sweet spot because I mean, I was covering two athletes, but really I was focusing on Lazar because he was poised to win the competition. So I was like, okay, I can focus on this one athlete. I can. There were several days where I would meet him at his apartment with my camera, and I would just hang out with him, film with him, walk to the venue with him. Then I would shoot the event, which was chill, just shooting one person, and then after that, I'd meet up with him. And so at that level, it's great. But then as soon as it gets beyond like maybe two or three, like in Brazil, like if I had to do that alone, storytelling for like, you know, 15 athletes, like that would have been hard. And that's when it's helpful to have another person, someone that understands the narrative you're trying to tell, the story you're trying to tell. So yeah.
We have a question here by Philip. He says, did they ever tell you why the finish line was unavailable until the end of the competition? I think I wasn't there. That was week 1, but I think it was because of broadcast, right? Like broadcasting, there were.
No, that that's what we were confused about too, because
week 2,
the broadcast,
it was good to go.
Yeah, well, broadcast was on, so the floor was like this, and the broadcast was on this side, and we were allowed to be on this side. But then the finish line was right here, and it was just an open pit. So we were kind of confused that first week. But then in Berlin, it was set up a little different. But I'm not sure. I don't have an answer, and we were never given an answer. So
yeah. CrossFit competitions. I mean, talking back to like athletes to follow, it like really, like the more you do this, like the more you go to competitions and stuff, like the more you learn how to like move around and like, you know, the workflow, the editings, how to, you know, capture the athletes. Like it also, like what I do a lot too is that I try, if I have an athlete on heat like 3, something like that, I go to the heat before and I like see the work and I'm like, oh, okay, you know, when the athletes are running this way, if I go here, this angle, and then I just wait for them on the other side of the floor. So that kind of helps a lot. And that's a question I get a lot, like leading up to games. Like people ask you like, hey, how do you move around the floor? Like, how do you know which angle to get? And it really, you don't know until you're there. Like you can read the workout, but you don't know like how the floor is going to be set up. So it's very important to just like go there and start like thinking, okay, you know, the athletes are running this way. There's a lot of people are going to be running this way, and they're going to say, here, what can I do to be a little different than everybody else is going to be waiting on the finish line? And I think that that's kind of like something that kind of separates like the some content creators from others, is that, or at least my favorite content creators is the ones that don't take the same photo as everybody else. And I think everybody that's here, they do that very well. Like you just kind of find your way, even if you're not positioned the best spot, you find like the way to take the photo. And putting that in perspective, like Marius, like being on the stands, like you just have a different angle than everybody else. So there's gonna be everybody with a similar photo, and then you can, I mean, use it as your advantage, right? Like you're gonna have a different angle and different perspective of that. And on the last episode, somebody, 2 episodes ago, David Su, he said something really interesting. But yeah, pretty much kind of the same thing as like if you're stuck on the stands and you don't have the lens that you want, just do something different. Like try to find a way that be creative and do something different, and people are gonna be like, oh, I've never seen this angle before, I've never seen this perspective, and something like that. Use it as your advantage instead of kind of being like, oh, what am I doing here? Like I should have stayed home.
That's what I was trying to do. Because I think it's really cool, obviously, when you're in a pit and you get like really close-up shots of athletes, their emotion. I think it conveys a lot. But because even with my 400 and couldn't reach that close, I really tried to show like how big the venue was on some of the shots, even some finish lines and stuff like that. Because sometimes when you're so close to the athlete or so close to the floor, you can lose like a bit of perspective. And even myself, just as a person, I was trying sometimes to put the camera down and just have a look at the venue and like how sick it was. And so when I was shooting some of the shots, I was trying to do the same and really show like the athlete maybe in a smaller version of it, and like everything around it. So yeah, it's cool to have different perspective. I think less access doesn't necessarily mean worse content. I think it makes you want to be more creative.
Absolutely. I was super jealous to see like the venues on the other semifinals. I'm like, dude, it just looks super sick. Like Torian, Brazil, and Berlin, they just look incredible. I think, I mean, I didn't go to week 1, but week 2 it wasn't like terrible. The West definitely, from what I've heard, the lighting was a lot better, but people were struggling week 1. Is that right, Bennett?
I was fighting for my life. Yeah. I had high expectations from the year before. I mean, I thought Thompson Bowling was a cool arena, like it's a cool environment. Anytime, I mean, maybe I'm biased because I like watch American football, and like growing up, I've gone to these like stadium environments. Like I love when the fans are right up next to the like arena, and you can just like when the stadium is like, you know, positioned this way, you could just the noise just funnels down into the arena. So maybe I'm biased, but we worked with what we had. So
Yeah, German throwdown is like really close to the floor, crazy energy.
yeah, and you can get like cool crowd shots and stuff like that. Um, but
Yeah.
going back to what you said, Carlos, I think this is kind of on the same line, but I think like knowing the sport has helped me get better content. As I've like when I first came to Mayhem, I didn't really know much about CrossFit, and I feel like as I've learned more about the sports and more about even like our specific athletes, it's helped me get better content. Like if I know, even as basic as like, hey, at the top of the muscle up, they'll look this way, or at the top of a thruster, at the bottom of a clean, like that helps. But even like knowing specific athletes and like saying like, hey, you know, so and so is really good at thrusters, so and so is really good at running. Like this is going to be a good workout for them. Like I should position myself at the finish line, or they're going to crush this first part, so I'm going to start here. I'm going to finish at the finish line. Like that's helps a lot. Like getting to know the sport of CrossFit and getting to know the athletes and what they're good at, what they're bad at, and prioritizing based off of that. I think that and even if it's not in CrossFit, just knowing your industry like really helps,
Yeah,
get
for
better
sure.
content.
I think that's something that Josie does very well. He has a really close relationship with most of the athletes that he works with. Like you train at the same gym as like 7 to 10 of those athletes, right, Josie, in Mallorca?
Well, so I used to because I moved back home now, but I think if you know the athletes, it's like I'll take Gabby's example because it's like the one I know the best. It's like I know exactly how Gabby moves. I know exactly how she's going to do what movement and whatnot. So that definitely helps. But then, for example, Yel Host who took fourth, and we had to cover him. It's like on the ski on the sled workout. I knew he was going to win the workout. Like I was like, there's no doubt in my, or at least his heat. I knew he was going to win the heat because I know he's very good at these things. So I feel like the more you know an athlete, like how he trains, how he moves, etc., the better it becomes for you to kind of anticipate your shots and kind of know where to get to. Like I said, make each shot count. It's like on the snatch, for example. Like I knew Bronislav was going to hit him. He was probably going to win the snatch, right? So I was like, okay, where can I be where he's going to, hit a big snatch? And I think especially in this snatch format where, because like our vantage point for the snatch was very, very interesting because basically it was inside, but you basically had to shoot the snatch between handstand push-up walls. So you were literally playing a game of Call of Duty where you had to like be perfectly placed. I was shooting everything manual focus because otherwise autofocus would skip. And so it's like if you know, for example, like who's gonna hit a big snatch, it makes your life easier. And obviously sometimes you have to make sacrifices, but then again, it's like you know how to make those sacrifices better and make these sacrifices count when you know the athletes and you know who's going to do good. I mean, everyone can miss a snatch, of course, but it's like you minimize the risk of missing a really, really good shot um, when you know the athletes.
Absolutely. I have a question for Bennett. That since you were obviously you were in 3 semifinals back to back to back, it's kind of hard, fast paced. You do a lot of work and you create good content. And my question is, what's something you're proud of that has nothing to do with the content you created?
Dang, that's a loaded question. I think for me,
The reason why I'm asking is because you definitely learn a lot in 3
Yeah,
weeks,
I did.
and you already know that like the content's gonna be good, but the thing that you're gonna take out like away the most out of, it's gonna be something outside of content creation,
Yeah,
right?
that's
So
fun. It's funny you say that. I actually have like a caption written out that I'm probably going to post on Instagram later, but I think the biggest thing going into these 3 weeks, if I'm honest, I was dreading the weeks to follow. I know these trips are very hard, and just one semifinal is hard. It's going to be late nights. We're going to have early mornings. I mean, shooting all day, getting back, editing, staying up until the wee hours of the morning. Like it's hard stuff. And doing that 3 straight weeks, like I knew, even though I was excited about the travel, I knew it was going to be hard. And I was I was dreading it. And I think as the weeks went on, like I found myself just like enjoying like the moments. Like I think for me at these events, like I'm always a social person. I'm always like connecting with people, but I found myself doing it more. I found myself, even though I was like tired after a day of like editing, like I found myself like connecting with content creators and even like CrossFit staff. Like in Berlin, like I like got to be homies with like a couple of the CrossFit staff members, um, and like it really gave me a lot of fulfillment. Just cultivating these relationships out of thin air, like people that live across the world that like I've never met before, or some people that I met last year in South America that I get to see again and like reuniting in a way. And I think for me, that's what I'm most like, that's what I'm most proud about is in a way I kind of became more confident in myself and who I am as Bennett, because I really felt like rejuvenated and like energized in these environments despite it being really hard. Um, because at the end of the day, like we're not doing it for ourselves, we're doing it for other people. And whether that be creating content for these athletes or just cultivating relationships with the people around us and giving them a positive experience. So everywhere I went, I would try to greet everyone with a smile, no matter what, even if I didn't know them. And it just it made me feel happier. So it has nothing to do with content creation, but that's kind of as these 3 weeks came to a close and I was like on the flight back, like I just like was in the seat like smiling because I was like, dang, like I just had like a really good experience, like meeting new people, like making friends. So yeah,
and
that's what I'd
and
say.
that's one of the coolest things of this that we do, like content creation and traveling around. It's those experiences, like the after party, the just the talking in the in the media room with people, meeting new people. Like I remember just sitting at Wadapalooza, just like kind of like annoyed that I couldn't get on where I wanted to. I was like on the stairs, and then Marius was next to me. He's like, "Hey, dude, I've watched your podcast. I like it." And then from there, we talked for like 30 minutes up until the event started, and it just kind of like it just made the day more enjoyable. And then from there, like we've been in touch on the DMs, and we talk every once in a while. So I think I mean, for me, it's one of my favorite parts about creating content and going to competitions. It's long days, but you always find something or somebody that'll make it better. Um, Carolien, how about for you? What's like the thing that you're the most proud of from past week?
Oh, proud. Proud is a big word. Well, like I was saying, and Josie was saying, like working in a team with people I'm not really familiar with. Well, our new Rowie, but that and yeah, I think because what Josie says, he knows the athletes really well. I only know Linda really well, and that's like the only one. But I love to tell stories. I love to pick up emotions and well, not the long form stories, but more short stories. But I didn't really know them, and I think it's pretty cool that Bennett helped me, but Josie helped me as well. Everyone. I think Josie really knows what kind of stories I like to tell, and he's like, "Oh, we can't interview an athlete during the competition, but get the coach of Lazar, get Facundo, and get Christoph, the brother of Gabby, and tell a story." So I was really, yeah, really proud of the team working together, and I could do my thing because, Josie thinks with me. Josie thinks the way I did. So yeah, pretty proud
that's
of how
always
it came.
fun to have that relation with the person you're working with. Just it makes everything better. The reason why I ask always like what are you proud of is mostly because like as we're talking, it's such a fast paced week, and it goes. I mean, even though we're there for 5 6 days, I mean travel days with 4 days of shooting, it's so fast paced that you don't even realize like like sometimes by Sunday night I'm like, dude, I can't believe that just 4 days just went by like that, and you're always in work mode, so you never get to like sit down and like just think, okay, what are things that I did this week that I'm like very proud of. It doesn't have to be content creation because at some point it can be kind of repetitive, like already like, hey, you're gonna take the photos, the videos, blah blah, but what's something that you did that that makes you proud and makes you grow as a content creator, as a person. And I think that's always important to I mean, I ask it all the time in episode like briefing post events episodes, but it's something that I really encourage every content creator. The day after, you're always gonna feel kind of like a little like sad, like down after a big event, a big week, because you're like riding a high the whole time, and then the day after, everybody's like back to their houses, like see you in 3 months, maybe 6 months, maybe next year, and everybody's kind of like, you know, everybody's kind of sad. um just sit down for a second and think about like what are things that I did this week that I haven't done in the past. What are things that I improved from the past, and what's like something that I'm really proud of? Because at the end of the day, it's kind of like the fuel that's gonna like it's kind of what's gonna ignite the fire for you to keep doing this, right? If you don't find something you're passionate about, something that you're proud of, like why are you even doing it? Are you doing it for the money? If you're doing it for money, most likely you're gonna burn out in a year or two, because that it's just not gonna make you a happy person. So just if anybody's listening and that's something that this is a business that you like, I really encourage everybody to think outside the box, not just content creation. Think about you as a creator, as a person, and what's something that makes you proud. I wanted to ask one question. We're almost at that hour, so before we cut it, Kevin and Marius, I wanted to ask you guys a question. What's like one advice? I mean, you can expand as much as you want. One advice you will give somebody that's listening to the podcast that's like, hey, I've never shot a CrossFit event before, but I really like it. I've shot at my gym. CrossFit is something that I'm passionate about. How do I get started? What's like something you could tell me to get myself into the world, the CrossFit world, or just sports in general? We can start with Kevin and then Marius.
All right. Well, I've thought about this question as well. I was like, this question is definitely going to come. But I think just start out in your affiliate where you're just like doing your classes or something else. And that's how I started as well. I just started in the first pandemic, with just capturing home workouts with a phone. And then I found like, wow, I love like capturing it, editing it. And then we started with some weird Mario thing where you could swipe the coach and then select the coach for the workout. And I was like, oh, I love that. And that grew out to like more of a passion. So just as you said, just don't do it like at the end of the line, you want to earn money. That's for sure. But it should not be like the main thing to do. Like, I think if you speak for all of us, we create content because we love like creating content, the process and the friendships you create. And if I would like start over, I think like just get out, pick up the camera, even if it's just like a newer iPhone, just shoot photos, edit them, ask advice like at other content creators, because that's something I did in the beginning as well. And it's very funny because that's turning around now. Like people are connecting or asking me like, hey, what settings do you use? What camera you use? What lens you recommend? And I think it's good to keep that loop going as well. Like, don't be afraid to ask other people for advice. It's like you're not on an island by yourself. Keep yourself surrounded by people to help you out. And like it's the same for Marius on Berlin. Like we had first day with the lights, it was pretty horrible because like everyone was like, yeah, I got all the flickering in my screen, and we're Europe, so we should shoot 25, 50, or 100 frames per second. And like for me and Bennett on the FX6, it was pretty easy because the FX6 does all the settings by themselves if the shutter angle needs to be different. So we were like, I don't have the problem. And then Marius came to me on Saturday or Friday, like, hey, I got all the lines. And I was like, yeah, just convert to NTSC, shoot 120. And then Josie told like, yeah, use the shutter speed of 1/160 and the lines are away. I think that's something you need as well. Just keep the people around you and help each other out to, step up the game.
Yeah,
you're not alone in this game.
Yeah, absolutely. Just gotta ask for advice. Even if you're like a very introverted person, you're always gonna find somebody that will make you feel comfortable and kind of like, help you. That's something I heard the other day. It's like introverted person are not, or again, I'm a very extroverted dude, so I can't really talk for experience, but I heard, I forgot who said it, but it was like introverted people are actually not afraid of talking to people, but they're uncomfortable. But once they find somebody they're comfortable with, they're just themselves. So yeah, I mean, and that's, I know a lot of introverted photographers and videographers, and it's kind of hard for them to like find their way through things. That's why I'm saying, like, you just gotta build those relationships and ask for advice. You'll find, at some point, you'll find somebody that will be, that person that could give you advice and help you out. Marius, how about you? Same question.
Yeah, so Kevin said a lot of it. Get close to your community, get close to your nearest box, and start filming. That's what I did with. I'm at Vonel Gym in Amsterdam, and I just contacted 3 athletes that were training there, Roman, Jeremy, and Linda. And I was like, hey, I would love to shoot some free content for you guys. Just to get better myself. It's not just to get a nice portfolio and nice images, whatever, but just like to better myself as a creator. So I would say just even now, 2 years filming. I've been doing media for 7 years, but shooting CrossFit for 2 years. Still to this day, if I don't have like a shoot for a while, sometimes I'm a bit afraid to lose my hands. So even like now that I actually get paid for stuff, I'll still shoot for free. I'll still shoot my community, and I'll still shoot my athletes when there's like a big competition coming, just to like still keep my hand like, I'm still worth it. I'm still, like I can still do it. And also, like Kevin said, just work with the gear that you have first before buying anything like super expensive or anything like this. I was working with an A7 III. Not an S3. So
don't use Nikon. That's the only advice I give. Other than that, you're good to go. Sorry. Resume. I said just don't use Nikon. Other than that, you're good to go. That's only advice.
But yeah, for the
nobody here uses Nikon, right?
Oh,
Carolien, what do you use?
Sony lover.
Okay. Yeah.
We bought all the gear from Sony. We have like the full shop going on in Berlin.
I had to throw the joke before the episode is done. All right, keep going. Sorry.
No, just to finish, I was just saying, like, for a year and a half, I was shooting on an A7 III, only being able to do slow-mos in 180. I didn't have like an S3 or FX3 or anything like this, but I just worked with it, and it allows me to like learn more about like how I expose my shots, and really just exposing my shots better. Even I couldn't do like 4K slow-mos. And then once a year and a half later that I got the budget to buy the FX3, then I was way more able to like use that camera to the maximum of its capacity, because I had like a lesser gear before that. So yeah, just work with what you have, get close to your community, and don't be scared to approach athletes and people to like give them some content.
Absolutely. That's a great advice. We got Mr. 88 miles per hour. I think that's his Instagram handle. 80 Mike Halpin. But yeah, he says the sentiments here echo in the rest of the world of working in CrossFit as well, beyond photo and video media. Love these chats. Thank you for listening. But yeah, I think, everything's kind of the same. At the end of the day, we're providing a service to somebody, and that's something I feel like some creators at some point, and I probably, it's happened to me many times, we forget is that we are there hired for service, to provide a service to somebody, to, as Bennett was saying, like to create a story or something. And sometimes we think too much about like ourselves, like, oh, like me as a business, and at some point you just gotta be like, wait a second, like you are here to create a story about this, I don't know, group of athletes that they're either making it to the games, so they're at the games, they're about to win the games. And that's, you just gotta shift that perspective and be like, I'm not here for me. Like, yes, like I want to do good work and grow my brand, but at the same time, like the reason why I'm here is because I'm here to do a job. Like I'm not paying myself. Like somebody else is seeing my skills and using my skills to, promote their brand or their athletes. So, and I feel like, I mean, all of us at some point we've gotten too much into the, oh, I gotta, do this for myself, and then you're like, wait a second, it's that's not it.
Bro, and there's such a clear distinction, like obviously not name dropping, but there are the people that are like obviously shooting for their Instagram, that are like trying to shoot as many athletes as they can, like just to like post on their own socials. And then there's the people that like are more focused on like the job at hand and are shooting selflessly. And there's just such a distinct difference between the two. Like those type of people are such a joy to be around, like the selfless content creators, and it makes for just such a better environment. I mean, all the people that were in Berlin can speak on that behalf. Like we were all shooting for, we were all serving other people, but like it made it such a better environment to be in.
And it also depends on your goals too. Like I understand if somebody's like, listen, dude, I don't care about content creation, I just want to be around. I just want to take some photos of some of my friends are competing. Sure, do it. Like go ahead, so, and that's something I've like, also realized in the last years, that there's some people just have different goals, and some people really don't care too much. They just want to be around, and that's fine, because that's just the way they want to do it. But yeah, like if we're talking about like, if you want to have a successful career in this world of content creation and, digital marketing, whatever you want to do, that's outside of like the CrossFit industry, is like, you just gotta understand like what's your purpose in every job that you're hired to do, instead of like what's your own, like, I mean, you understand what I'm trying to say. What's your purpose in the job, instead of like trying to just build your ego up every time.
This is such a people oriented business, not just CrossFit content creation, but just content creation in general. It's like the more you connect with people, the more you are, like the better person you are, like the more it, obviously you're not wanting to do it to be hired more, but you will be hired more. The better of a person you are, and the more connections you make. If you're just a good person and a joy to be around, like you're gonna have success, not only financially but in life. So
100%. That's like the number one advice I give everybody when they ask me like, hey, how do you get hired for more jobs? I'm like, I mean, if you see the panel here right now, Josie, Bennett, Marius, Kevin, Caroline, like me, we all, I feel like we all do a good job, like a good job in our own like things that we have to do. But there's always going to be somebody that's better than us. Like we're not the best at anything that we do. We're replaceable. There's probably 10,000 people that can do what we do better. But why do they keep, like, why Fit 8 or Go What keep picking Josie to this? Why, stuff like that? It's just because of the person they are, and they feel comfortable working with Josie. Josie built that strong relationship with those brands, that they know, hey, we have a competition. They know who they're going to go to. Even though, I mean, Josie does extremely good work, but I mean, let's be honest, there is always going to be somebody that can do a better job than any of us. And but that's it. Like if Josie was an asshole, like they'll be like, oh dude, like Josie's such a good content creator, like he's probably the best one right now, but dude, I can't deal with him. Every time I try to communicate with him, it's like, I'm not gonna do any edits, I'm gonna sleep by. They're not gonna work with him.
And there's been these people who don't do it anymore as well. I think it's such a valid point. It's like you build those relationships. It's like you gotta see the people you're working with. Obviously, it's like a climb, but more as like a partner. It's like you guys work together towards the goal, and you always put, like you said, it's like a service. You want to be to the service of the brand or the athletes you work with. And I think especially in this space, loyalty goes a long way. So if you build this relationship where like you mutually work together towards a certain goal, and year after year you guys start setting goals, and you both work towards it, and I think that also like our job is a very physically demanding job. I think it's much more physically demanding than people would think. I think it's Vic McLeod who does a lot of photo and a lot of podcasting for the program. She does that extremely well, and she posted like her steps during the weekend, and it was, I think, like 75,000 steps over the weekend. That's huge. And it's like I feel like brands understand it, and when they know that, like, hey, like you're up there, you're working late, and even though sometimes maybe you put out an edit and it's not as good as it usually would be, but when people know you're trying your best and that you're loyal to them and you're always putting yourself at the service of the people you work with, I think that's how you create like long lasting relationships and long lasting, how to say, like, opportunities in the space for yourself.
And it goes both ways. Like us as creators, we cannot settle to clients that really don't appreciate our work, or they don't understand, or they just don't have they don't just want to build that relationship. They're not good at communication. That's when you gotta understand, like, hey, they might pay me, but this is not sustainable. They're not, they're just not a good client for me. And it's kind of hard to move on to sometimes from that type of people, because I mean, what am I gonna do? Like they're paying me, but I'm not enjoying it. And that's like a tough decision, but it's definitely necessary sometimes to move away from that environment. Marius, you wanted to say something? Sorry, Carolien. Go ahead.
No, I think it's pretty unique in CrossFit because I worked in gymnastics for a couple of years, and there were only grumpy people there in the media pit, and there were lots of like photographers only shooting for a paper, so they just need one shot and that's it. And I was always, I've never fight, but I was always in a fight with people, like big angry men who think, because I was moving differently, I was talking to the girls because I know them, and they hated it. And I think in CrossFit it's pretty unique, the atmosphere. And if you say like the brands and the people working, they're all just want to have a good time, and they're working well together, and everyone's working hard. So nobody is like, if something goes wrong, yeah, it's not like you're in a fight or something, but in other sports it is. So I think it's pretty unique in CrossFit, the atmosphere that's building, like the community feeling. You feel that when you're in a CrossFit box, but you also feel it in the media and in the brand. So kind of love that.
I think it's one of the reasons we all keep coming back every year to the same competitions. Even though we get our opportunities, like I think, I mean, I'm speaking for myself, but I look forward like the CrossFit competitions just because it's fun. I enjoy it.
Even Wadapalooza?
I mean, that one, it's a little harder, but I mean, it's still fun. As I said,
it's always fun. Like the banter is always fun.
Yeah, very fun. It's just,
and I think
the media access is like, I mean, I feel most of it, I feel bad for the people watching, because I'm like, we're like all over their like place, just running around. So I'm like, but I'm hired to a job. I'll do it. What were you gonna say, Bennett?
Going back to what Carolien said, it's like, I know we sometimes get frustrated with like access and media pits and stuff like that, but it is very true. Like, I've worked other sports with media, like even in college, and like the CrossFit media is very, very different. I mean, like if you go shoot anywhere else, like the NFL or like college sports, like it is super limited, extremely strict. I mean, I'm not gonna say there's no community, but it's not like it is in CrossFit. And I think that goes back to like what CrossFit is. It fosters a good community. And even in the media pit, like we may be frustrated about certain things, but at the end of the day, like it is it's a good environment to cultivate creativity, because we are allowed to do a lot of things that other industries aren't allowed to do. So
and we're allowed having fun.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah,
I feel like
that's the main thing. Yeah,
a lot of the industries are very, like, the creators are very defensive about their work, their job, and we're all kind of like, we don't see each other as like competition. We're more like, we're kind of like working on this together. Like, many times, like, I've gone to Josie, ask him a question. He come to me at the games, ask me a question. Like, we're just kind of like, even though we're not working for the same brand, we're kind of like, it almost still feels like we're like a part of a team. Like, we're trying to create the best possible content, and hopefully help each other to just grow.
Yeah, I hate that mentality of like, oh, they're a rival brand. Like I'm not gonna talk to them. Like, oh my gosh, I hate that so much. Like I just want to connect with someone as a person. Like forget the fact that we're like working for different companies, you know? It just
And,
makes life so much easier.
and to close it out, like to be honest, we're not gonna be. I mean, maybe some of us will, but we're not gonna be doing this for the rest of our life. I'm talking CrossFit for the rest of our life. So building this type of relationships right now with everybody, you never know. In 5 years from now, Josie might be doing some, I don't know, filmmaking documentaries for, I don't know, HBO something, and might need somebody like an extra hand, and he'll remember that Bennett was this awesome filmmaker, good at, storytelling, and he'll be like, hey, I know who we need to hire, and we're building those relationships for the future.
Yes.
Marius, anything else you want? I saw you put your hand up.
No, earlier you were talking about like saying there's always going to be like better content out there, and I always try to, because it's so subjective, right? Art. So I always like, so to add like a third advice to someone starting, trying to compare yourself too much, because as Roosevelt said, comparison is the thief of joy. And I struggled, and I still struggle with it a lot, seeing other content creators and like, oh, it's crazy what they're doing. I could do better, whatever. And in the end, it doesn't make me become a better video maker or anything like that. So just try not to compare yourself too much. It's really hard to say like, oh, that's better content on something that is so subjective. You know what I mean?
But also, as to what you said, it's like if you're also having like these thoughts sometimes in your mind, I think it's a good thing, and I think it's like you're progressing, and I think you're staying true to yourself.
Mm-hmm.
It's like sure. there's so much content out there, so many different styles, whatever, and it's like, and yeah, you can see something, be like, oh, this is really cool, but if you're having this conversation with yourself, but you end up sticking to who you are and to your style, whether it's through music, through color grading, through focal length, whatever it is, it's like that's when you know you're true to yourself, and that's when you develop as a creator. And I think that's also what will help you have longevity in the space, because you develop yourself. And I think it's like, if you want to stay in this game for a long time, I think you need to develop like your own way of doing things, and you want to get to a point where whenever someone sees something, they're like, yep, this is this person, without seeing anything else.
Yeah, and it's true. I mean, comparison is a thief of joy, but at the same time, you can use it as motivation. Kind of, if you're happy with the art that you're making, as you say, it's subjective. So everybody's got different perspective of like what's good, what's not good. So be happy where you are right now. You're gonna keep improving if you really want it. So use other people that you are inspired by as motivation. Like, oh, hopefully at some point I can create something, as storytelling driven as like Bennett is creating right now. But don't let that like, like make you step back from it, because at the end of the day, like if you really want to do it, like if there's something you want to do, just keep working on it, use it as motivation, and eventually you'll make it there, or you create your own art that you'll be happy with. I think that's the most important thing. Just be happy with where you are and where you're headed. Kind of like just be proud of it and don't focus too much on other people.
Yep.
I was bugging, bro.
Yeah, no, that was Lily. Lily's barking.
Oh, it's Lily?
Yeah, she's the alarm when I go past the hour. She starts barking, and she's like, "Hey, people have to do other things in life. Don't keep them here for too long." But guys, thank you so much for doing this. I know I said 1 hour. We're in 1 hour and 15 minutes, but I really appreciate all of you, and taking your time. I know it's
Thanks
getting
for having us, buddy. See
kind
you.
of
Yeah,
slow
thanks,
already.
man.
Thank you
Yeah,
very much.
absolutely. So everybody listening, thank you so much. Again, this is episode 35. It's the last episode of the debrief for semifinals. Most likely from here till the games, I'm just gonna be doing single episodes until the games. We're probably gonna do it's kind of, Josie, I don't know if you remember, we did like a pre CrossFit Games, and then hopefully a post CrossFit Games. But other than that, like, thanks everybody for listening. Make sure you follow every content creator here. We got Marius at Truth_Films. We got at CF_Kevin. You can see right there. I'm just saying it because people are listening on Spotify. We got at CA Video for Carolien, at BennettLooper, and at Life of Josie with 2 eyes at the end. So make sure to give him a follow, hit him on the DMs, tell him that you really enjoyed the episode. If you did, Tell them what was your favorite part of it, and don't forget to subscribe. Hit that, you know the drill. But thank you so much, everybody. Give us a follow too at Content Lab Podcast. Again, we are slowly growing, but that's it. That's the way it goes. I'm enjoying doing this. So thanks everybody for listening. Anybody else wants to say anything before we cut it?
Awesome. I want to say thank you for what you're doing with this podcast, man. I think it's great to give a voice to all of us in the shadows, kind of in the shadows. So I just want to say thank you for what you're doing with this.
I appreciate it, man. Well, I'll see you guys hopefully at the games. I haven't met Carolien and Kevin in person, so hopefully I'll meet you guys in person sometime soon.
I'll see you in Madison.
Heck yeah. All right. See you guys.
Bye.
Bye, guys.